I've heard so many people say, I'm too old to start something new, especially when it comes to business. Maybe you've even thought that yourself. But let me ask you something. Have you ever met someone who started a successful business later in life and thought, wow, I wish I'd waited even longer to do this? Probably not. The truth is, age isn't a barrier to starting a business. In fact, it might just be your greatest advantage. Think about it. You've got decades of experience, wisdom, and maybe even a little financial stability that younger folks are still working toward. So why not use that to build something meaningful, something that excites you? Today, I want to share some proof. Real stories of people who started businesses after 60, 70, even 80, and not just small hobbies, but thriving ventures. And along the way, I'll give you some practical steps to help you get started if you've been thinking about it. Because here's the thing, you're not too old. You're just right. Let's start with the first reason why starting a business later in life might actually be the perfect time. You already know what you're good at. Unlike someone in their 20s or 30s who's still figuring out their strengths, you've had years, maybe even a whole career, to discover what you excel at. Maybe you're great at organizing, or you've got a knack for fixing things, or you've always been the person friends turn to for advice. That's not just a skill, it's a business waiting to happen. Take Martha, for example. She spent 40 years as a school teacher, and after retiring, she missed the connection with kids. So, at 65, she started a tutoring business from her home. Now, she helps children in her neighborhood with reading, and she's making more money than she ever expected. She didn't need some flashy new skill, she just used what she already had. And that brings me to the second point. You don't need to reinvent the wheel. Some of the best businesses come from taking what you already love or know and finding a way to share it with others. Maybe you've always baked the best pies at family gatherings. Why not sell them at a local farmer's market? Or perhaps you've got a garage full of tools and the patience to teach. What about offering small woodworking classes? The key is to start small, test the waters, and see where it takes you. You don't need a fancy website or a huge investment to begin. Sometimes all it takes is telling a few friends, putting up a flyer at the community center, or even just posting on social media. Now, I know what some of you might be thinking, but what if I fail? Well, here's the thing. Failure isn't the end of the world. In fact, it's often just a stepping stone. And at this stage in life, you've got the freedom to take risks without the same pressure you might have felt when you were younger. So let's talk about how to take those first steps, because once you get started, you might just surprise yourself with what you're capable of. One of the biggest worries I hear from people about starting a business later in life is, what if I don't understand technology? And I get it. The world moves fast, and it can feel like everything's gone digital overnight. But here's the good news. You don't need to be a tech wizard to make it work. In fact, some of the most successful senior entrepreneurs keep things refreshingly simple. Take John, for example. He started a small gardening service at 68, and for the first year, he didn't even have a website. He just printed flyers, talked to neighbors, and let word of mouth do the rest. Eventually, his daughter helped him set up a Facebook page, and now he's booked months in advance. The lesson: start where you're comfortable and grow from there. You don't have to master every new app or platform right away. Just focus on what helps you connect with customers. And speaking of customers, that brings me to my next point. Your age is an asset when it comes to trust. Think about it. When you walk into a store or hire someone for a service, don't you feel more at ease with someone who's experienced, who carries themselves with confidence? That's exactly what you bring to the table. People appreciate reliability, and after decades of life, and maybe a career, you've got that in spades. I'll never forget the story of Barbara, who started a small bed and breakfast at 72. At first, she worried that younger travelers wouldn't want to stay with an older host. But guess what? Her guests loved her. They raved about her stories, her home-cooked breakfasts, and the sense of warmth they just couldn't get at a chain hotel. She wasn't just selling a room, she was offering an experience, and her age was a big part of why it worked. Now let's talk about something practical: keeping costs low. One of the advantages of starting a business later is that you probably don't need to chase massive growth or take out risky loans. Maybe you just want something that brings in a little extra income while doing something you enjoy. That's completely okay. In fact, some of the best businesses start as side projects, a hobby that turns profitable, a skill people are willing to pay for For instance, Robert, a retired mechanic, started fixing lawnmowers in his garage just to stay busy. Before long, neighbors were lining up to drop off their equipment, and he realized he could charge for his time. He kept his overhead low, no fancy shop, no employees, and within a year, he was making enough to cover his vacations. The point is, you don't need a grand plan or a huge investment. Sometimes, the best businesses grow naturally from the things you do anyway. Of course, I won't pretend there aren't challenges. Maybe you're worried about energy levels or how to balance this with family time. But here's the thing, you get to set the rules. Unlike a traditional job, you control your hours, your workload, and even the type of work you take on. If you only want to work mornings or 3 days a week, that's entirely up to you. The beauty of starting a business at this stage is that it can fit your life, not the other way around. So, if you've been hesitating because it feels overwhelming, try breaking it down. What's one small step you could take this week? Maybe it's writing down your ideas, talking to a friend who's done something similar, or even just researching what others in your field are doing. Progress doesn't have to be fast. It just has to start. And that's where we'll pick up next, because once you take that first step, the rest starts to fall into place. You know, one of the most inspiring things about talking to people who've started businesses later in life is hearing how it's changed them, not just financially, but in the way they see themselves. There's a certain spark that comes from creating something new, no matter your age. And that's what I want to leave you with today. The idea that it's never too late to surprise yourself. Let's talk about community, because one of the hidden benefits of starting a business as a senior is the connections you'll make. When Linda started her knitting supply shop at 70, she thought she was just selling yarn, but what she really built was a gathering place. People came in not just to buy, but to chat, share patterns, and even teach each other new stitches. Her business became a hub, and suddenly, she had a whole new circle of friends who shared her passion. That's the magic of turning what you love into something that brings people together. And here's something else to consider. Your business can be a legacy. Maybe it's not about building an empire to pass down, though it could be, but about showing your family and yourself what's possible. When 78-year-old Frank started writing down his family recipes and selling them at the local flea market, he never imagined his granddaughter would help him turn them into a published cookbook. Now, his recipes and his stories are preserved in a way that will outlast him. That's the kind of impact that goes far beyond profit. Now, I know some of you might still be thinking, but where do I even start? Here's the simplest advice I can give. Begin with what's in front of you. Look around your home. What do you already have that others might need? Skills, tools, collections, knowledge. The first step doesn't have to be grand. It just has to be taken. And remember, you're not alone in this. There are more resources than ever for senior entrepreneurs, from small business workshops at your local library to online communities where people share exactly what's worked for them. The hardest part is often just making that first decision to try. So here's my challenge to you. Today, give yourself permission to imagine what could be. Maybe it's a tiny side business. Maybe it's the project you've dreamed about for years. Whatever it is, your age isn't a limit. It's your advantage. You've got the wisdom to know what matters, the patience to do it right, and the freedom to make it yours. I'd love to hear what ideas this has sparked for you. Drop a comment below. Maybe you'll inspire someone else to take their first step too. And if this video gave you a little nudge of confidence, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories like these. Because here's the truth, the world needs what you have to offer. Your experience, your perspective, your unique way of solving problems, that's valuable. So whatever chapter you're writing next, make it a good one. After all, why shouldn't the best be yet to come? Here's to your next great adventure. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Do subscribe to keep the circle growing.